Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my lair. Here we are after a while. It's been a while. I've been busy. Last weekend I did a model convention. That was kind of fun. It's nothing like, winning some prizes to affirm you in being a total nerd in building plastic models. But anyway, the thing I wanted to talk about this week is I did it. I finally watched The Woman King. I was really excited. I was one of three people in the theater. It was a Tuesday matinee at a tiny theater in rural Nevada. Anyway, so I'm sure that's normally the case for these things. But anyway, I watched it, and I have to say I've never been so confused. Um, I mean, it was such a confusing movie. I It wasn't what I was expecting at all, to be honest with you. Everything that I thought that I was going to get out of it. If you'd watched my previous video, you'll see all the things that I was hoping for and thinking that I might get in all of this, and I didn't get any of that. It was like, I don't know. Imagine the Hallmark Channel makes a film, an action flick, by the way, and they use the choreographers from the Power Rangers, and then hire a trio of writers from Black Lives Matter, the Red Stockings, and LifeSite News. And that's essentially what you'd get in The Woman King is that sort of thing. And so if you're a little bit confused by all of those weird contradictory sort of things, that's what it is. Now, I walked into this movie genuinely hoping to enjoy it. And maybe I did. I don't know. I don't know if I enjoyed it or not. There's a bunch of things that I was expecting in it that, were there, like man bad, right? White man worse, slavery bad and we anti-slavery kind of stuff. Um, it wasn't actually as over the top as I think some people were worried about. Yes, it was also wildly historically inaccurate. Um, again, if you watch my previous video, that doesn't really bother me that much. It's honestly about as accurate as any other movie. Um, I don't know. It was probably more accurate than Wild Wild West and less accurate than The Patriot. There you go. I don't know. Sure, there's things in it that are fine. The Portuguese are in it, and the Portuguese exist. Dahomey was a place. The slave trade existed. The actresses did not shave their armpits, and I think that is incredibly historically accurate. So there you go. Um, Beyond that, the point wasn't to give a history of Dahomey. That wasn't what it was about. It was to tell the story. Um, the story wasn't bad. It was just getting pulled in so many different directions, though, and there's so much to distract you that really brings the film down. There's a whole bunch of things. So I'm going to talk about some of this stuff because I'm trying to process it in my own brain also. But I don't know. The thing is I'm not going to get into a whole thing about how historically accurate was it. One, I'm not an expert on West African history. I am an expert in slavery and American history in the South, especially as it regards slavery and religion. But I mean, um, when we're talking about this kind of thing, again, it's a film. I don't really care about the history of it because I'm not here watching it trying to be informed. Go read a book. Watch my other video and you'll see I have a book that I say read this book. I'll put it in this one too. Anyway, so yeah, I'm not really interested so much in the history. I'm interested in what was going on with it, and I'm sure there's plenty of other channels that pull apart the historical inaccuracies just fine. People love doing that, so go watch them. But after you watch mine. And I guess one thing I'll also point out really quick here is if you had, like me, a burning desire to see this film, I'm going to spoil some things. So there's some, sort of, gotcha moments and oh my goodness sort of moments, and I'm going to spoil them. Um, you know, and by the way, I'm being very meaningful when I am not very, emotive by saying gotcha and oh boy. Because I don't know, they're a little bit predictable. So anyway, so if you wanted to watch the movie, go watch the movie and then watch this. Um, but yeah, I think the biggest problem that I had with the film was that the Amazons weren't scary and they weren't believable. Um, And I mean, if we're talking about believable in that kind of business, unbelievable sometimes works to get a point across, right? So if we're talking about 300, the Spartans were not believable. Again, Spartans do not go to battle wearing muscle oil and leather underwear, but the whole point, the filmmakers made this point of badass warriors who were stronger and deadlier than their adversaries, right? I mean, they had the whole stuff where it was just like they could just mow through their adversaries, and that was the point of it, right? This is the issue, though, with making women warriors. They're not going to beat men at the strength game. I mean, maybe they'll beat some men at the strength game. I'm sure that, some of the actresses in the Woman King could beat me in the strength game because I'm not particularly strong. But here's the thing, is they weren't scary. I mean, the Amazons, like the historical Amazons, they weren't scary because they were physically stronger than men. They weren't. But they were stronger because they were fearless and savage. That's what made them so terrifying. They were terrifying because they were fearless and relentless. I mean, when we're looking at the battle scenes in The Woman King, where were the women fighting with bayonets sticking out of them? I mean, where was the woman who got disemboweled killing a man with her teeth? That's terrifying. I mean, women sparring with a very generous partner, it isn't that scary, right? A bunch of women going, while they like gingerly step out of brush isn't very terrifying. I mean, that's one of the things I hate about the modern female, the strong female character, right? Is they're not female characters. They're written like men. And women aren't strong because they're physically strong. They aren't strong like men are strong. The Amazons weren't effective warriors because they were physically stronger than male warriors. And let's be clear, women have strength. They have a strength that men can't touch, right? Women shove children out of their crotches repeatedly. When you take that kind of willingness to endure pain, I mean, I've seen it happen. It doesn't look comfortable. And you combine that with the instincts of maternal protection. I mean, holy crap, you can get a very frightening warrior. I mean, let me give you an example. So I've wrestled my wife, all right? I mean, just playing around, goofing and that kind of business, wrestling around. And I'm not hugely strong, right? When we're playing around, I can overpower her. I'm stronger than her, right? Neither of us really exercise, and so I just happen to be naturally strong. And to cut things short, because now I'm starting to embarrass myself, I can beat her in a fight. Not that I fight my wife, but I can guarantee with perfect assurance that if the most dangerous heavyweight fighter in the entire UFC so much as threatened our children, my wife would tear him in half. And there is no power on earth that could stop my wife from protecting our children. And it would be crazy. She would flip cars. She would take bullets. I mean, tooth and nail isn't even in it. And if you can capture that, right? If you can take that willingness to endure pain, the willingness to just fight no matter what, to the ends of the earth for your kids, that kind of thing, right? If you can capture that for your female warriors, then I think you'd have an idea of what the Dahomey Amazons would have looked like. I mean, this is the whole reason that poem that I read, the Female of the Species, right? The Kipling one. That's what Kipling was talking about, is these women are so much more dangerous because they have those sorts of instincts in them, and they have that ability to withstand stuff that, men would be like, okay, I give up, right? And instead of that, the choreographer, I mean, it looked like they were essentially trying to emulate a kung fu movie, or maybe 300 or something. And there were just some really dumb things. Like there's one where the two women like use the same spear to kill people, and they're working together with it and stuff. And it was just silly. And then to make matters worse, the sound effects were awful. Like, just plain awful, right? I mean, so allow me to demonstrate. Whenever somebody gets hit, whenever somebody gets kicked, stabbed, cut, decapitated, sliced. Whatever the sound is, it's always the same. That's what the battle sounded like. It was awful. I hated it. It was the exact same little every single time anything happened to anybody at all. As it was, the action was pretty cheesy, and that really bothered me because I was hoping that the action would be absolutely terrifying and freaky, almost like a horror film, actually. That would have actually been kind of cool if they could have made it horrifying, like a horror film. So the other thing about this is there is the slavery issue. And I've been seeing a lot of people getting up in arms and being really, really upset about the slavery issue and all of this. And I mean, I can understand why people would, be upset about the slavery thing because, well, Dahomey was a kingdom that participated heavily in the slave trade. Yeah. To be honest, though, I mean, the movie attempts to be anti-slavery. I mean, it portrays the characters as being opposed to slavery, trying to make alternatives to the slave trade. The main character actually has an idea of selling palm oil. We'll sell palm oil, and that's how we're going to make our money now. Realistically, I think that if you were to do palm oil like that, then that would probably actually just consume more slaves only domestically. And I guess probably the environmentalists get pretty pissed off about palm oil as well. But anyway, the problem is that it doesn't really work well with the story, right? The whole trying to make people anti-slavery and stuff, it doesn't really fit the characters. They're just, I don't know, like the one is, slavery is bad and all Africans are one people and we ought not to have slaves or sell slaves at all. And I don't know. I feel like, I mean, I know what they were trying to do and everything, and yeah, you can't support slavery. I mean, honestly, you shouldn't support slavery, right? I think it would have been a lot better to have like a really dark lesson, like closer to what actually happened historically, where everyone is heavily invested in slavery and everyone loses big because of it, right? That would have been a cool lesson, right? Where it's essentially you're sawing off the branch you're sitting on, right? And I don't know. Instead, we just sort of get like what's supposed to be like a feel-good flick, where I really think a tragedy would have been way more effective. Now, by the way, I don't think that making characters anti-slavery in a pro-slavery society, I don't think that that's necessarily bad, but it has to actually add to the story, right? For example, in The Patriot, Mel Gibson's plantation was worked by free blacks, right? I mean, the evil Lord Tarleton, is it Isaac Jacobs or Jacob Isaacs? I always have a hard time with firsties. Anyway, so he comes and he says, well, you slaves will be freed when you fight for the king, and they say, oh no, we work this land as free men, and I mean, that's a pretty glaring historical inaccuracy, right? I can pretty much guarantee that did not happen, that there would have been absolutely zero plantations in colonial South Carolina that had a bunch of free blacks working on it for a white guy. They would have been slaves. With that said, it was there to support the overall theme of liberty and freedom, what the American Revolution actually meant. And we don't really get that from The Woman King. I mean, The Patriot was about liberty through sacrifice and redemption. And I think The Woman King tries to get to that too, but we don't really get any sacrifice. I mean, Viola Davis wins, but it's not really that redemptive. It's more vengeful. And I mean, understandably so. And I didn't really get the sense of triumph. It was just sort of like a hackneyed win, and everyone goes, yay, and there was that. And so we don't see that sort of, struggle, and it doesn't work the same way that it worked in The Patriot. We don't get the real victory. And then, of course, also, I mean, at least in The Patriot, you can say that, yes, when the Americans won the Revolution, it created this whole crisis about slavery. And it's going to take about 100 years for them to resolve that crisis, and then like another 100 years for them to actually start, creating equal rights for, black people and everything. But At least there was the idea that, it created this whole conversation and this whole issue of, well, if all men are created equal, what about those people? Whereas I don't think that really happened in Dahomey, and it didn't really seem to happen that much in the movie either. Um, I don't know. There's a bunch of others. I mean, the music itself was also atrocious, and I think this is where the Hallmark Channel really comes through, is in the music, um, and that's what was distracting, I think, a lot. One of the big things, because it's all over the place. I mean, 1 minute there's like this sort of like generic African stuff, and then next it's like sappy orchestral music. Um, I don't know. Maybe they figured it worked for The Lion King, and I mean, hey, this one takes place on the same continent, right? So there's that. And then one of the things that really bothered me was the love interest. There was like this love story, and it was kind of dumb. I mean, if they had made a movie specifically about that, I think they had all the ingredients for what could have been a cool forbidden love tale, right? But the story was just getting pulled in too many different directions, and they never really fleshed it out. I mean, I don't know. I didn't really, one, get the attraction between the lovebirds. You could call it love at first sight, but they really met in one of the most contrived ways. And then they saw each other in what was another massive contrivance. In fact, now that I think about it, like the whole reason that the dude was in Africa to begin with was kind of a big contrivance itself. Anyway, I never really felt like their hearts were in it. I mean, it was like they were just kind of like, it's like, okay, here's a young man and here's a young woman, and they're near each other, so I guess they must fall in love or something. And then I'm also pretty sure that they slept with one another at one point, and I have to be, because they weren't in your face about it, right? They didn't have a sex scene, and I actually kind of appreciate the fact that they did not have a sex scene. But I'm not sure why they would have slept with each other. Or maybe they did, or maybe they didn't. Um, I don't know. It just kind of adds to the awkwardness of it all. And then, who knows? I mean, who knows? Maybe they never did sleep with each other, and instead they just, like, sat in the room and read scriptures, and then he left, and then she took off her clothes and got into bed or something. I don't know. It's just weird. And then after the big battle, the dude just kind of like watches her go away. I don't know. They could have done the love story so much better, right? And I mean, even if it was supposed to be like, the love lost or something, or if that was supposed to be the sacrifice, you didn't really feel it because they never really had a connection, and it was never really the thing. Anyway. And then finally, like, I think one of the biggest things that's so confusing about this to me, and one of the biggest surprises to me, is that there is a massive pro-life element. I think I said in the beginning of the video that it was like one of the writers was probably from LifeSite News, because it's just weird. And think about this for a second. There's a pro-life element, a big giant massive pro-life theme in a movie about female killers. So through the movie, by the way, we get this mystery, right, of what happens to, like, the head Amazon woman and where the girl comes from. And anyway, I mean, this is the big spoiler for you, right? I mean, we learn that the head Amazon was gang raped by a bunch of Oyo people, one of whom is the main antagonist. Anyway, she gets pregnant and then has the kid sent off to an orphanage. And wouldn't you know it, the girl who shows up later is her kid. Again, the whole thing's kind of played out a little bit awkwardly. I mean, there's the contrivances. It's like, I'm pretty sure that if you put shark tooth in a kid's arm, it'd get infected and the baby would die. But I don't know. Maybe shark teeth are known for their their alchemical properties or something. I don't know. Anyway, it's just weird, though, because that whole portion of the movie is like this big giant pro-life message, right? I mean, there's a bunch of other little stuff that adds to the overall feeling of, keep your children, right? See a pregnancy through and all of this. But one of the biggest messages is that it's not the girl's fault that her mother got raped. And she has value as a person and is loved by her mother. And she is not defined by the manner of her conception. I mean, I think the Reverend Childress would actually, approve of this message. And it's one of those weird things. It's one message that I actually really appreciate and really enjoy. It's just weird that it's there, though. I mean, it's one of those goofy things. So I don't know. What do I think of the movie? it was okay. And I really wanted to like it. It was just good enough to keep me engaged. I mean, there was good acting. I will throw that out there. That's one of the big things that I can say about this is there was very good acting. I think a lot of the actresses were particularly good. I did think Viola Davis did portray her pain and wounds and concerns very well. And I don't just mean like physical pain and wounds and stuff. Like, I mean, clearly she's got scars all over her and all of this, but she portrays like the emotional wounds and the I don't know. She's very good at being emotive and not being over the top. And I think her acting is one of the reasons why I did actually like the movie. So, I think a lot of people were pointing out that there are probably a lot of bots that were just, out there saying, Viola Davis, what a great actress. And I mean, she was a good actress. I thought she did actually a very good job. There's the other actress, and I forget her name, but she's like the female James Bond. She's in this movie too. And she wasn't bad either. I think some people might think that she was like a little over the top and everything, but she was playing that part of like, a big sister sort of thing, and I think that worked out pretty well for her. Honestly, I wouldn't really say that there was any truly like bad acting. I don't know, I didn't like the dude, but some of it was a little over the top. I think the King of Dahomey, for example, that actor kind of overplayed being an African sometimes. And it was kind of over the top. It actually kind of came across as clownish sometimes, when it should have been like dignified and awe-inspiring as the monarch of this powerful kingdom, and sometimes it just wasn't. And yeah, I didn't really like the love interest dude either. He was just pretty. I think he could have been a lot more than just a cover model. So yeah, overall, I don't know if I liked it or not. I'm still confused. I was hoping maybe by the end, by spouting all of my stuff to you, maybe I would actually come to a better conclusion or something. I mean, if you're like me and you can catch a Tuesday afternoon matinee and you have nothing better to do, or if you see it on a streaming platform later on, I mean, it's not awful. Who knows? Maybe you'll like it more than I did. Maybe it'll be the best thing you've ever seen. You just connects with something in your soul. So with that word of confusing confoundment, I don't know. I hope you've all gained some insight. And I will say I hope to see you all again soon. Trying to make more regular videos. And didn't work out because, well, I got busy and didn't make time for you. I'm sorry. But there we are. Again, as always, I hope you've gained something from this. And I wish you all joy in your lives. I'll see you soon.